Hey everyone, welcome to today's live stream. Welcome to today's video. On today's video, we're going to be showing you how to trade the Forex markets and actually make money. So if this is your first time here on the live stream or one of our videos, my name's Israel, and what we do here is we show you how to make profits. And on the weekend, this is our weekend show where we basically show you just the ins and outs of what we're going to be doing in regards to the trading week. So buckle up, let's get ready, and we'll start pretty soon. Let's get into it. So you should be able to see my charts on screen right now. You should be able to hear me properly. And the fact of the matter is, if you've got any questions you want us to answer on today's live stream, if you're joining us in real time, leave it in the comment section to the left, the live chat window, and hopefully I'll be able to get to those questions before we actually sign off. So we're going to jump into about 4 or 5 different charts. That's what I've planned to go through. If you have a currency that you want me to basically look at, like I just said, leave it in the live chat. I'll basically see it at some point. The chat is working, I can see your chat, and I'll basically get to that at some point in the future. And on top of that, if you've got any Forex trading related questions, you can ask those as well, and we'll basically try and answer those to the best of our ability. So just for those of you who are joining us for the first time, haven't been here before, or don't know what we pretty much do here, what I basically like to do on the weekend is I like to basically open up the charts, and I basically like to plan out what I'm basically going to do ahead in regards to the markets. So I'll look at specific currencies. I'll say, okay, you know what, I think this market's going to go this way, or I think the market's going to go that way. And basically throughout the week, I'll basically try to trade in that direction that I basically planned out right now while the market's actually closed. And if price starts going in the opposite direction to what I've planned out, I'll basically try and be nimble and basically try and react to what the market's actually doing. So this is really beneficial for all of you as Forex traders, especially if you're a retail trader like me, which basically just means you trade your own money from home, etc. Because we want to take out as much of the emotion from our trading as possible. We want to be doing things logically, which makes sense and actually ultimately can help us make money. Okay, so if you want to kind of see a bit more detail about what we kind of do here, you can go back to last weekend's live stream. It's in the description box below, and you can basically get insights into how we kind of do things in more detail after this live stream. So let's basically jump into the charts, and we'll basically start. Let me see quickly. Let's see. Let's look at the euro yen first and foremost, right? And before we even get into the charts as well, I'll just say this. Generally, what you want to do every day before you start trading, but especially on the weekend, you want to basically take a quick look at what you can see here. This is the economic calendar, right? And this basically just gives you all of the information you can see in regards to scheduled data. So this is foxfactory.com, not sponsored, but it basically just shows you all of the data that's basically scheduled for the week. And this week, what I noticed is the week in regards to the scheduled data that's coming out is actually backloaded. So what that basically means when I say that is most of the really significant news is coming out towards the end of the week. You can see right here, it's Thursday, right? Thursday here is really and truly where you start to see a lot of the red activity. And that's basically like a kind of like traffic light system. You've got yellow, which is less important, orange, which is a little bit more important. You've got red, which is extremely important. And you can see as you go to the end of the week, basically, that's where a lot of the red starts basically coming. So you want to basically use a website like this. Most brokers and different websites will have scheduled calendars, basically, which will give you all of this information. There's nothing special about foxfactory.com or anything like that, just for the record. All right, so let's jump into the charts. Let's look here and see. Give me 2 seconds. And you can see as you go to. All right, so let's look at the euro. Let's look at the pound against the dollar. Okay, let's look at the pound against the dollar first. And let's make a case to see what's basically going to happen, right? So what we basically do here, again, for those of you who are new, even for those of you who aren't new and have been here for a more significant amount of time, the fact of the matter is you want to become habitual at doing these kind of things. You want to ingrain these things over and over again. This is one of the reasons why I love teaching, because it forces me in a lot of ways when I'm teaching, especially when I'm teaching a lot more, okay, than not. It constantly refines all of these things in my mind. It's constantly refreshing in my mind, reminding me all of the key principles to be successful as a Forex trader, right? And especially now for those of you as well who may be at home a lot more for the first time in this current situation, this current climate, in this period, right? This gives you a much better opportunity to take advantage of these kind of things. Just because people are getting laid off right now, just because people's money is declining, it doesn't mean that that has to be your testimony, your portion, because you can do stuff like what we're talking about today, and it can give you like valuable insights into basically how to make money, whether things are going great in the economy globally or even in your specific respected country, or things are going bad. Either way, okay, Forex is such a beneficial scenario because it gives you the opportunity to make money in any situation. This is why I truly believe it's recession proof. So let's look at the pound against the dollar. We start with the higher time frames, okay? Always we want to start with the higher time frames because we want to get context. You can see here, this is the pound against the dollar, and we're looking at the daily. So all that basically means is each specific, we call them candles here, okay? Each red bar, each green bar here signifies one day. And what we can basically do here is we can basically change this time frame to different scenarios. We can look at 1 day's worth of trading activity, what price was actually doing. We can look at an hour, 4 hours. We can look at different time frames, and it's really important that you basically get to grips with looking at different time frames. We've got a video on our channel, it should be in the description box, about the different time frames, the best time frames to use. You can watch it after this live stream because it'd be really beneficial for you, right? But we start with a higher time frame because we want to see what the overall momentum is doing. What, from a bird's eye view, last week we kind of put together this kind of like analogy. It's almost like basically, it's almost like someone basically coming out of the elevator and basically like taking a look down off the roof, going to the top of the building and looking down and saying, look, what way is the traffic going? Ultimately, that's what we want to do. Okay, we want to see what's actually going on. We want to see exactly what's happening. Thanks for who's that, financial trading, for following the channel. But the point is, the fact of the matter is, when you look at this stuff, it's really important that you understand like what's the bird's eye view before you now start going to ground level basically, and you're basically trying to drive to follow the traffic in a specific way. So we've been talking about this for a little while, and we've been talking about how from a lot of years now, the market on the pound against the dollar, let's go up to a higher time frame, or I'll show you that in a second, in fact. But we've seen generally that this price has basically been going down quite substantially, right? It's been moving down, and that's been the main mindset of us basically in regards to how we're looking at the market. So we're looking to trade the market down, and this was climaxed with this huge 2,000 pip drop on the pound against the dollar that happened a couple of weeks ago. Now subsequently, what's basically been happening is price has basically been trying to push up, and as price has been pushing up, we're wary of all of this activity, right? And we're saying to ourselves, look, at some point it looks like the market is basically going to try and turn around and continue to move down, because whenever a market's moving in any direction, in this case moving down, right, don't be afraid of stuff like this, because people are going to be profit taking. As much as prices basically try to push back, think about this in the context of the whole move. Okay, what I mean by the whole move is from up here all the way to down here, right? I said this was 2,000 pips. Okay, 2,000 pips. So the fact of the matter is, when you think about this, how much has price moved back? Price hasn't moved back 2,000 pips here. Price moved from 132, okay, as you can see here, all the way down to just under 115, right? So if we're talking about 2,000 pips, thereabouts, price has gone back to 126. That's the highest price has basically got to in recent times. It's got to the 126 area, right? So you think about it from that perspective, we looked at price in this particular region, was asking ourselves, is this where price is basically going to turn around and basically move down? It hadn't got there. We highlighted this basically 2 weeks ago as an area that price had to, and we'll look at this in more detail in a moment, so this all will make more sense for you, right? But we saw this basically initially, and we was looking at this saying to ourselves, well, like, what is the market going to do? Is it going to turn around there? It moved down a little bit, provided a really good opportunity initially down to this level here, and then bounced off. But 2 weeks ago, I was basically saying this, look, if price doesn't break through this region, I believe it's the 122.20 region, then price is most likely going to keep trying to push up. And let me take all of this off for a second, because you can see price pushed up again this second time, right? And price topped out here for some reason. And price basically last week basically tried to move down for a little bit. But I basically said the same thing again. We need to basically ascertain and identify what price is basically going to be doing in this region where this top black line is, right? Now, the fact of the matter is, when you watch what's basically happened so far, price pushed down, went below it a little bit, but has subsequently tried to go higher. So as we're looking at this, my mindset is, for the time being, it looks most likely that the price is not ready to move down yet. Now, so as we go through the week, I'll be looking even more so. I'll be more likely inclined to be looking for positions to go up, right? And this is obviously my personal opinion, just for the record. This isn't categorized as financial advice. You have to make your own decisions and bear the consequences, whether it be positive or whether it be negative, just as I do myself personally, right? We obviously trade, I've mentioned this already, we're retail traders, most likely, if you're watching this, and we trade our own money for our families, etc. And it's in our power to basically make the right decisions based on what basically happens in regards to the money we put on the line or the money we don't put on the line, and the money we make and the money we lose. So the fact of the matter is, I expect the market to continue trying to push up, because price has been trying to hold this 125 region. If we go down to, just a little lower from a time frame, right here on a daily, right, let's go to like a 4-hour or even a 1-hour chart. Okay, we can see this trading activity in much more detail. Here's the region here, the 122 20 region, right, that I just mentioned, which you saw previously on the chart. Okay, and the fact of the matter is, price did not break through it previously. This is a couple of weeks worth of trading activity. You can see here going back to the beginning of April. Now, as price basically bounced off this particular region, like we kind of just explained, we've highlighted this is the top area, the 2477-ish, around 125, right? This is where price has basically been like stopped for. And if you look at all of this price activity here, you can see that price has been pushing up, right? But the fact of the matter is, price has basically been just bouncing in this region. And one of the things, we'll talk about this when we get into like potential trade opportunities that I might be looking at. But if price, we highlighted initially, this is a potential area that price could decide to now move down. And I said last week, to start the week, last weekend, again, go back, watch it after this live stream. It's in the description box, last week's live stream, right? Last weekend's live stream. I was basically saying, to start the week, I want to see what price does at this area. Is price going to continue to move up? Is price going to continue to move down? Like, what is price going to do? This is something we have to obviously ascertain, right? We have to look at this and say, okay, cool, what is price basically going to do? Now, price pushed up, price has come back to this area and is basically trying to find like what looks like a bottom, because we're looking at here, we're looking at the 124.50, right? This is where this first line is, about the 124.50. Then price basically pushed up again above this area. Price is trying to bottom out here. Price bottomed out twice here to basically wrap up the week. So it's really interesting what that looks like. This is all happening within the 124.77, 124.80 region on the pound against the dollar. And it's interesting to see price could at any moment, and this is why we focus on, we get that bird's eye view, right? Because we know at any moment the market can go in the direction that it's been accustomed to going. But it's really just about looking at what the market's basically doing and deciding what we're basically going to do based on it. I would more likely be looking to continue to take long positions. I'll be looking at the 124 area where price has actually bottomed out from. That's about 100 pips away first and foremost, and basically seeing what price does if price is able to basically get back to this region right here, right? The 124, the round number. And we'll basically be looking to see what price does in that particular region, in that window. And even lower, to be honest, we could look at this 124.50 region, although I wouldn't hold this with a much, to be honest, I really wouldn't look at this to be honest. Even though we've got it tried to bottom out here, and this is synonymous with this price action right here, it has bottomed out previously, subsequently. So the 124 region would make more sense. But at the same time, you have to bear in mind that, look, this line here, This 124, 77 goes all the way back to the higher time frames, the 4 hours, dailies, weeklies, etc., as an area where price might have actually reversed from. So it's really important to see. One thing I'll say just for the record as well, we've talked a lot about the higher like time frames and those kind of things, right? And the long-term momentum. Whenever you're going to trade contrarian, what could that basically means for those of you who don't know that, just in simple terms, is whenever you're going to trade against the long-term momentum, you have to be cautious. You have to be ready to say, look, you know what? The market can turn at any moment, because on average, what the market has typically been doing for the last X amount of years, months, weeks, whatever it is going in the opposite direction. So you have to be careful that you don't get caught out, and you have to be extremely nimble, extremely ready to basically go the other way and change the whole scenario, because it can happen just like that. Okay, so just bear that in mind. So as we look at these prices, we're looking at this stuff and saying, we've got our potential areas. Price has bottomed out here twice. What happens if price decides to start breaking through these areas? Well, again, going back to 2 weeks ago, we're going to have the same mindset. We're going to say, look, if price does not break this particular region here, then it's most likely that price is not ready to move down, because there's a lot of there's a lot of buying activity from this region, as you can see. So what I'll basically do, let's take this off. Let's go to a 4-hour time frame. If this is making sense, just let me know in the chat box as well. If it's not making sense, just ask a question and I'll try and unpack that for you as well. Okay. Like I said, we try to answer these questions at some point during the live stream. I'd probably most likely break down the charts a lot more and then basically try and get to your questions towards the end of the live stream. But either way, I'll try to get those questions answered. But you can see here in more detail, right? This is the same area. 4-hour view, you can see price did not break this region. So even if you look at it like this, price bottomed out 3 times, pushed up, consolidation, drop, and pushed up. And this area, if you're wondering like why this area right here, all we did is we looked left when price had pushed up and said, look, if price is actually going to move down, we need to see price basically break through this area, because if it does that, then we can see smooth sailing at least to these kind of areas here, the 118.50 and 119 areas, etc. And if price is able to subsequently break through this area, then we can see all the way back. This is what we talked about 2.5 weeks ago, the potential 800 pip drop on the pound against the dollar. It's not in the description box, but if you go back on our channel, probably about a week, 2 weeks ago, you see it. The thumbnail was basically like 800 pip drop question mark or something along those lines, and was basically talking about the potential of when this market basically decides to basically turn around, etc. It would be about 800 pip drop back to these kind of lower levels. So if price basically blows through these 2 bottoms right here that we was just talking about here, then again the 122.20 region is going to be the area of importance. If price breaks through that, and obviously by those times we'll be looking to sell through the week, we'll now go to these lower levels, basically down here 118.50, 119, before subsequently trying to get back down to 115, etc. But as it stands, the price looks like it wants to continue moving up, and if that's the case, we'll be looking to basically do those same things as well. It's just that important, it's that significant really, to basically trade what the market is giving you. Don't get caught up in the things that you don't want to do, what the market isn't showing you. Okay, we can make decisions all the time, but the fact of the matter is you have to put yourself in a position where you're ready to take a trade decision and live with the results. You're ready to make analysis like this and basically see, this is how you improve. And this is the mistake a lot of traders make. They don't understand that the fact of the matter is there's nothing wrong with being wrong. The problem is when you are a trader and you're wrong and then you don't do anything based on it. So if I make a decision, for example, I'm like, look, I think the pound against the dollar is going to go up, but I'm cautious and ready for it to turn around and go with long-term momentum and start selling, right? If I say this is what I think is going to happen and it does something different, there's nothing wrong in that scenario. Even if you took trades and you lost money, the problem would come if you turn around and you say, okay, cool, I made these mistakes for whatever reason. You don't review why you made those mistakes. You lost these trades. You don't review why you lost the trades, and you don't make any counterbalances. You don't make any additions. You don't make any changes. You don't make any improvements on your analysis. You don't look at the markets again and say, okay, why did I get this wrong? Like, what happened specifically? And all these kind of things. And this is the problem. You have to be ready to basically change and basically get better with your Forex trading, right? So as we look at this, let's zoom out a little bit. These are the same black lines, right? This top line here is the same black line we was basically just talking about previously. These are the two bottoms, the 124.20 region, you can see in more detail. We was talking heavily about the 124 region. But one thing I'd be saying is, I'd be looking at where price closed here, and I'd be saying, okay, cool. Like, to end the week, right, we had price trying to top out in these areas. And I'd just be mindful of that. Okay, the 125.20 region. This is basically a 100 pip window right here. And I'd be looking at this and saying, okay, cool. Like, is price going to break through? Because again, remember, the momentum is this way, right? Long term. Even though the last couple of weeks have been trying to basically push up and try and recapture that 2000 pip drop, right? But the point is, we're looking at this and we're asking ourselves questions like, where could it potentially reverse? Why is price basically trying to top out in these particular regions? That's something for you to consider. And we'll just be looking and saying, okay, cool. If price continues to go up, we don't mind potentially finding and taking trade opportunities on the upside, but we always want to be looking this way. And we want to be saying, okay, cool. Like, where is the market trying to turn around? Are we going to look at this, the 125.70 region, and say, cool, price dropped? And also looking at this, okay, the 126.40 region. So the point is, as all of these things happen, you're basically saying to yourself on these different scenarios, like, cool, like, is this the potential area? This is the same thing we talk about when we get to other currencies like the euro yen. We'll bring this up again. Whatever way you're trading, you always want to be looking this way. You always want to be looking this way and saying, okay, cool. Where could my trade find likely resistance? I don't mean that in a sense of support and resistance. I mean that in a sense of where is that trade going to find difficulties potentially going higher or going lower, depending on what way you're basically trading the market. Because a lot of the time, when you look at the historical elements of trading in pretty much a lot of things, a lot of the time things are just going to repeat themselves. History repeats itself over and over again. Okay, and the funny thing is, I think there's a famous saying, something along the lines of, the powerful thing about history is, or about something along those lines about history, you never learn from history, which is crazy because in something like trading, for example, in so many different areas in life, you'd think, you know what, our forefathers, our ancestors have made these mistakes. Let's not make these same mistakes, but we so often, just as mankind, make the same mistakes over and over again. So that's why it's important for you to get really focused and looking back and saying what happened last time, because a lot of the time, the more and more you look at charts, the more and more you'll realize that charts do a lot of the time what they've done previously. And when you think about it, there's a big craze over probably the last 10 years about robots and indicators and all these different kind of things. But the point is, excuse me, men and women are the people that make the robots and these indicators, and men and women are the people that basically execute these robots and indicators in a lot of ways. So the fact of the matter is, even within like the whole AI, artificial intelligence, and these robots and these automated machines and all these kind of things that may be trading and will be unemotional and will be super quick, they're triggered, they're created, they're programmed by humans, okay, who have emotions, who have logic and all these different kind of things. So just bear that in mind. So if you're trading in this direction, the same way, even if I was trading in line with the long-term momentum, I'd be looking for areas and saying, okay, cool, where is it going to be difficult? Where can things basically fall into problems, etc., and stuff like that, right? So that's the pound against the dollar. Let's look at another currency. Let me see here. We zoom in a little bit. Okay, let me look at another currency. Okay. Hey, Tony Mayweather. Hey, hello, you're learning. Okay, that's great. You said you're trying to understand. All right, cool. Thanks. If you've got any questions that I could answer for you that would help you understand, let me know in the chat section, and I'll try and get those to you as well. Okay, but the fact of the matter is, hopefully this is beneficial to you. If there's any like currencies you want answers about, I'll try and answer those for you at some point in the future. Just let me know in the comment section as well. Okay, let's basically look at the euro, another important one of my regulars. Okay, let's start with a daily. Now this one, very similar to the pound against the dollar. A lot of these currencies are moving similarly in a lot of ways, which is actually quite interesting. Let's look at the daily view. So the daily view, we don't even need to go up to higher up in the building, right, and get even higher bird's eye view. You can see pretty much from the daily view, looking back all the way to September as what we can see here. We can even zoom out even further, going back to 2018, going back to even some of 2017. You can see pretty much from right here, which is the start of 2018, that price has been going in this direction, which is quite clear, all right? And we look at this even further, apart from 2020 pretty much, which had a huge spike right here to push up, okay, from 108 to 114, not quite 1,000 pips, but it did really put in a huge correction, going back to highs higher than July of 2019. Okay, so almost wiped out about 6 months worth of losses on the euro. But look what it did. Let's take all of this stuff off. Let's zoom in a little bit, right? Let me move this over for you. Look what it did. It put in that huge upwards correction, but then it did this huge downwards momentum all the way to this level here, pretty much the 106, 107 region, right? Now, when you look at this, we'll go to a higher time frame maybe in a moment for you to see, but this is basically all the way down to a key area where price had previously said look, it's time to move up from. And you think about it from that perspective, you can see like a lot of this stuff just becomes like second nature the more and more you focus on this stuff, right? But the point is, look at what price has been doing. Similar to the pound against the dollar. Okay, it bounced off this region, but then it moved down. Now, the problem with this is we've got one bottom here, we've got a second bottom, and price looks like it's trying to put in, sorry, not as second bottom. We've had this initial bottom here, which is based on just huge price action going back this way. Okay. Then we've seen price move up and try and put in what we'd call a higher low. And price is basically subsequently trying to put in what seems like another higher low, although during the week last week, we saw that price basically topped out just below the 110 area, okay, as you can see here, and basically put in 100 pips plus move on the downside before trying to come back on Friday's trading. Now, the point is, when we look at something like the euro, we look at this and we say, okay, cool. We don't know what's going to happen, obviously, but based on what price is actually doing right now, I'd be a bit cautious. Like, I like the fact from a technical perspective that we have this, right? That we have a downwards momentum and we've got 2 days, 2 big days here of price basically moving in this direction, right? And the fact of the matter is, as we see this more and more, like Friday's trading activity here, this candle isn't really what you want to see in regards to price moving down. But I'll enter the week in regards to the euro like cautious, okay, but expectant for price to likely move down. Now, like 2.5 weeks ago, we need to see something really interesting. What we need to see on the euro from my perspective is, let me go down, or even before I do that, I want to see this. Okay, let's look at this. Okay, just like we talked about on the pound against the dollar previously, a couple of weeks back, we want to see if price is going to now try and retest these lows, right? This is red, but this is a bottom. Let's make it less transparent. Let's send it to the back. Just for those of you wondering, this is, if you want a free trial to this whole trading software that I use, it's in the description box for you to get charts like mine. If you can get a free version, there's a paid version. The free version's good enough for the record for most people that are trading. So I want to see this area break. I'm expecting for the market to try and move down, but look, this is why it's good to basically go down to some of these lower time frames and see what's basically happening real time. Because we talked about the bottom, we talked about the potential lower high or higher low, sorry. And look at what price is basically trying to do again the third time. This is why it gets a bit cautious. Well, let me do this, sorry, actually. Let me take all of this stuff off. Let me go back to a daily. Okay, let me move this down a little bit. Just a tad. Over. And let's do this. Do it like this. Okay. A bit wonky, but we'll just leave it. So now let's go back down again. Just below the 108 region, right? 108. So we can see, like, look at what price is doing. A few weeks back, we can still leave this area on. We thought price was going to just get up to here before pushing down. It did it a little bit earlier, which was fine. Provided several opportunities down, but look what price is doing. Okay, last week, 2 weeks ago, we talked about prices moving up, consolidating up, and then price said, okay, you know what, it's time for us to basically stop, and now it's basically trying to move down. Didn't move down the cleanest, but price is a question mark. Okay, I expect the price to move down, but again, price basically closed at the 108 80 region, right? And this down here is just below 108. So we're talking about less than 100 pips. So the reason this is important, as we go down to a lower time frame, same thing I just talked about on the pound against the dollar, right? Let's look at the 1 hour view. Let's take all of this stuff off and let's move this over. Anyway, just leave it like this. But the point is, if I was going to take a sell position on this, my mindset is always going to be focused on this area right here. Okay. I'm going to be asking myself, can any trade I take give me a decent stop loss, wherever it's going to be? Okay, wherever the stop loss would be, somewhere up here, right? Is it going to give me a good entry so that my risk to reward, is decent? But then also my take profit is well good enough. I go for at least 3 to 1 risk to reward. So if I'm risking 1%, I need to make 3%. If I'm risking 2%, I need to make 6% at least. So it needs to be able to fulfill itself, okay, within this region, within where this price has tried to reject itself multiple times. And if it doesn't meet that criteria, then I won't basically take the trade, because at the end of the day, it's important for me to have a trade, not only make sense, stop loss, entry, take profit, etc., but also target wise, in a sense, which is kind of similar to the take profit. But I mean target wise in a sense, I need to be looking this way, right? And saying, okay, cool. Like, where is the price skyrocketing off from, basically? Because if price has skyrocketed up from here before, what did I talk about previously? It might do that same thing again. And if it's going to do that, I need to be in a position where the trade is not having a take profit down here somewhere. I would like my take profit to be higher before it gets to that region. Because why? Why would I do that? Is it because I'm afraid? No, it's not because I'm afraid. It's because logically, it makes a lot of sense that price may be able to get to just above it, but it may not be able to get actually to it. Okay, and the closer you can get to avoiding that area, the better it will actually be. If that makes sense, just let me know in the chat section and we'll continue. But this is important. This is the kind of stuff you need to get really conscious at and obviously become smart at doing, because it really helps you in regards to your trading activity. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, as we look at this in more detail, let's do this. Okay, so you can get to, let's do this. Let's see. Okay, as we look at this currency, like I said, you're talking about from the 108 region to where price closed at 108.70, 75 pips. So it could provide a good opportunity. Now, let's say, for example, price doesn't move down, similar to the pound against the dollar. I'll basically be doing something similar in a sense. I'd be saying, okay, cool. bearing in mind, okay, price has been trying to push up, and basically from the 15th, price decided to consolidate a little bit before basically dropping down in basically about 3 to 5 waves for you Elliotticians out there, right? But the point is, when you think about this and what price has actually basically been doing, like price and a lot of currencies did a lot of stuff like this. There was a lot of uncertainty last week in the markets. Not all of the markets were moving kind of conclusively in one direction, and that makes it, or can make it, a bit more difficult to trade. But that's why you have to be careful and you have to be prepared, and sometimes it's better to just sit aside and say, you know what, I'm not involved. But we look at the euro dollar here and we say to ourselves, okay, cool, like we have to remember, we've got this area right here, we've got 2 potential bottoms right here, and the way price closed with on last week was based off the back of some consolidation before trying to actually push higher. So it's about looking and seeing. If you're going to go the opposite direction, if price doesn't start moving down and starts moving up, similar to the pound against the dollar, okay, cool, we'll be ready for price to try and push down back to these low levels. But if we're going to take long positions, okay, cool, let's start looking this way. We can see up here, we can see the 109.80 region where price last week decided to basically just top out from. And we look at these areas and say, okay, cool, is this the area where price may find some strong appeal from the opposite side? If we're going to take trades into up to these high positions, we don't want to really put our targets higher. We want to get our targets inside. And the same way, like I just kind of unpacked from the opposite direction, we'll be looking at this and saying to ourselves, okay, cool, if we can get entry wherever it's going to be, if we're going to get a stop loss wherever the stop loss is going to be, if we can get a target, okay, if the risk to reward makes sense, okay, and we can get a potential target within this particular region and get it higher, and this window is good enough to get at least 3 to 1, okay, or for the perfectionists out there, 1 to 3, okay, then it provides a good opportunity. If it doesn't provide those opportunities, then there's no point for me personally for trading it. Some of you out there, I know you trade 1 to 1 and you trade 2 to 1 and all these different kind of things. That's good for you, like I talked about previously in the live stream. Different people trade different ways, and it's not, I'm not doing this necessarily to say, look, you have to trade the way I trade, you have to think the way I trade. But either way, if you're going to trade more similar to how I trade, or you're going to trade your own way, a different way, still, I believe I'm giving you a lot of valuable principles for you to basically use and ascertain in order to help you actually make more money trading the Forex markets. This is the euro dollar. Let's basically go to another currency as well. Let's see. Okay, let's look here. Let's look at the pound, the euro yen. Okay. Now this was an interesting one. This is the 1 hour view. Okay. You can basically see this yellow line we drew on from last weekend's live stream. At that time, the market looked something along the lines like this. Okay. And again, it's in the description box if you want to go back or watch it after the live stream. And price, basically, I was highlighting this area saying, look, is price potentially like going to try and come into the yellow region, this yellow region right here, right? Before subsequently trying to move down. Because we had basically been talking about this for weeks and weeks from a sell position. Price, as you can see, we was highlighting this 117 area as the area where price is most likely going to try and bounce back from, which is subsequently what it did. At the time, I was highlighting as well the 117.50 region. I was saying, look, I think price is going to be able to get here, but just to be safe, if I'd be taking trades, I'd be most likely be trying to take trades and not trying to have a take profit below this region, because there was a lot of time price was bouncing between two areas. And basically what was happening is price didn't always get, most times it still got to 117, but most of the times, I think apart from maybe one time when price basically dropped back down, it was getting to here every single time, 117.50. So it only just made sense, like I was just talking about on the Euro USD, the same kind of concept. You want to make sure that you're putting your targets in places where price is most likely going to get to, not being even more risky than it needs to be, especially if there's good profit potential on the table, regardless of the situation. Okay, so the fact of the matter is, as we look at this stuff, what has price basically done? What has price basically done since? The fact of the matter is, as we look at this, what's happened? Price bounced off this particular region, shot through initially, before subsequently pushing up. And we'll talk about this yellow area a bit more. I've kind of touched on it already a little bit. But before we do that, let's go up. Let's look at a 4-hour view so you can get even better context. I mentioned this previously, just the two areas where basically price was basically bouncing between, right? Previously, price was bouncing between these two regions. You can see just in more detail how price has actually been doing that. So the fact of the matter is, when we look at this kind of stuff, we're looking at this and saying, okay, cool. You can see what price is doing. Even just going back to last month, you can see what price did. And basically what happened last week is, like I said, I drew on this area, and you can see price, similar to the Euro from a couple of weeks ago, didn't quite get there. Just decided to drop 10-20 pips before, basically, and started moving down. Okay, back to this 117 area. So it's important for you to understand, as these weekends live streams progress more and more, you'll start to see this even more and more, that look, these opportunities can be sussed out. These opportunities can be planned ahead on a weekend in advance, the day in advance, all these different kind of things, and we can put ourselves in the best position to be prepared to make money. So the fact of the matter is, as we look at this, what's going to happen next? Well, what do you think I'm going to say? If you're bold enough, let me know in the comment section to let me know what you think I'm going to say. But we look at this stuff over and over again, and it's quite clear, in my opinion, what the market is most likely going to do. The fact of the matter is, okay, as we look at this, we see price was in this particular region previously, okay, earlier in the month. If I zoom out for you, going back to March, you can see price was around this particular region. If we zoom out even more, and now we're going back to October of 2019. Now you can see September of 2019. Okay, last year, 6, 7, 8, 9 months ago, price was still bouncing from this particular region. So what is most likely? Again, we're retail traders. We trade our own money. We can't guarantee what's basically going to happen. Okay, we don't have that insider information, right? Well, we can take an educated guess, can't we? What do we think is going to happen? What is potentially most likely to happen in this scenario? If going back to last year, only one time since last year has price been able to seriously break through this area, and it still even came back in that scenario. Every other time it's kind of just came here and bounced straight away. So we look at these different scenarios and we say to ourselves, okay, cool. The fact of the matter is, price is most likely going to try and push up somewhere. This was the same thing I said to start April. Price had finally got to this region. From right up here, we talked about trade opportunities all the way down, basically. Go back, watch the previous live streams to get more insights to just how to kind of trade these opportunities, right? But what basically happened after? I basically said on one weekend live stream, it was probably 2 weeks ago, okay, which probably was, I said, look, price is right here now. And I said, look, now it's a question mark. What we basically have to ascertain is, what is price going to do next? Price could easily continue going down. If it does that, then we look again. This is how this area came on. We're now looking for the next area lower, where price could actually turn around, etc. Price could do that. And if we do that, we're going to basically still be trying to take trades down, making sure that any of our trades, as it gets closer and closer, are higher than this particular region, higher than this 116.12 region, right? Now, the fact of the matter is, that's one option. It can do that. There's a lot of momentum behind it. But we're reaching historical key areas, okay, which you have to be mindful of. And in those scenarios, we say, okay, cool. It could do that. It could drop lower. It always could do that. We know that as a possibility. But what's more likely? More likely is price decides to do this, okay, move sideways, which is you have to be cautious of, or even more likely is to move higher and try and people are going to be taking profits. The market is pushed up from here previously, so we know that price could easily potentially get as high back up to here, which is where price was just a few days ago before. Okay, but the reason it can move this much so quickly. This was a 400 pip drop, if I remember correctly, and we had a live stream about that. If you go back on our channel about 2 weeks ago, with the thumbnail or something like 400 pip drop, okay, that we told you about, etc. Now, the reason this can happen, this drop down here can happen so quickly, is because this is off the back of long-term momentum. This is why I continually say, even if you're going to trade in the opposite direction, just be mindful that the market can go in the opposite direction at any time, easily. So if you think about it from that perspective, where's price going to go to? We don't know. Price could potentially move down. If it does, we'll be looking at the 116.12 region as a potential area where price decides to try and bounce from. Then price can move sideways. If that's a scenario, maybe this will go to the back burner. We won't try and trade this as much because price isn't trading as volatile as it needs to be. If price starts pushing up, what do we have? Well, we've got this area up here as pretty much the top of where price basically is most likely to get to if it pushes up. But we also have this region here that we've got. This was based off this area. We've got 1, we've got 2. We also have, looking back even further, all within this region. Okay, we've got 1 drop, 2 drop, and we've got 3 drops. So we've got 3 times in recent history that price, over the last couple of weeks, that price hasn't been able to breach that region. But it's interesting because if price is going to basically try and move up, this would be the significant area I'd be looking at, saying, okay, cool, is price basically going to break this region and try? If price broke that region, then I'd just be obviously looking to the left, but also saying to myself, okay, cool, just being mindful that price could actually come back to these regions. So as we start the week in regards to trading, the market's going to open in a couple of hours. As you can see here, the market is actually closed right now. Okay, this is why we like to do it on a weekend before the market opens. I'm basically going to be cautious with this one the same way I was to start April, and I'm going to see. Okay, I'm going to see what happens. If price shows me that, you know what, it wants to keep going lower, then same as just continue looking for a sell position, looking for tops, looking for where price is trying to top out, where we get some good consolidation, where price can get sold with a stop loss somewhere higher and a target somewhere obviously lower. If price doesn't want to do that, if price starts sending me signals that it's moving sideways, then I won't likely be looking to trade it. Excuse me. If price does what's most likely and starts moving up, then I'll be looking for long positions. And I'll be looking left saying, okay, cool. There was some previous price action here about 117.75. I'll be looking at this area here, 118.70, 75, 119-ish, and saying, cool, these are the last kind of areas where price rejected. And these might be potential areas where price comes in again with long-term momentum and tries to push back down to 117. Okay, there's a lot of buying power in this region. So unless the sellers are going to come and basically wipe out all of the buyers here and push price lower, this area is most likely to hold. How much it holds for, we don't know. But if this area keeps getting tested, more and more buyers okay, are most likely going to be coming out of the market. And in that scenario, if once the selling exceeds the buying volume, that's how the market can move lower, okay, and stuff like this. But we go down to a lower time frame, we could look at some of this stuff in more detail. You can see more specifically what price has actually been doing at this particular area. Okay, so let's look at another currency. This is euro yen. Let's look at, let's look at the Aussie, Australian dollar against the US dollar, right? And let's basically see what price is basically doing here. Cool. So this is the Australian dollar. This currency was more underwhelming for me this week in a lot of ways, because it really didn't do much. There was a couple of currencies that really that I look at mainly that really didn't do much. This was one of those currencies, because as we look at, I can't remember what time frame it was. There was a time frame I was looking at basically that just kind of summed it up. So the week started here, right? And you can see this is basically all of the week's trading activity. And in a nutshell, it's like you can draw a line right through the middle and you can see there's some above, there's some below. And let me show you a weekly candle. Just 1 week. We'll show you all of this in one go, right? Let's take all of this stuff off. Let's zoom right in. And this shows you exactly what I mean. This is that whole week's worth of trading that I just circled. And this is what we call for our candle pattern traders a doji. All that basically means in simple terms is it's indecisive. It doesn't know what it's going to do. And just looking at it logically, you can kind of see how that kind of makes sense, because we've got a little body, okay, and we've just got what we call the tail of the candle, or the wick of the candle. It's very long on either side. So price pushed up, price pushed down, price overall over the week just moved up a little bit. But price is basically looking like it wants to continue moving up. Initially, I was thinking that price may try to move down lower, but subsequently, from that happening, price has really, and you can see, look, this is each a week. We had a week where price basically dropped here, dropped a little bit even more, and pushed back. Then we basically saw price basically put in a very strong week. Price put in a little week here where it tried to move down, and then we had another big week where price is basically pushing up. We've now got a small week. Last week, price looks like it wants to continue moving higher. So I'll be looking to try and buy this currency this week as well. Although it was really indecisive, generally, if after an indecisive candle, you generally see some sort of conclusivity, if that's a word, something conclusive, okay, for the grammar police. But the point is, I'd expect this market to move higher, so that's what I'll be basically looking to do on this one. We can go down if we want, or we don't even need to go down. Let's look at the USD/JPY. Another currency I look at. This was another one of those. You can see what price did. The weekly candle is extremely bearish, as they say. Looked extremely like it wanted to move down, right? Let me zoom out a little bit. But this is interesting for a number of reasons, because I wanted to show you something on this, which I think is actually quite interesting. So overall, we've just seen that the market wanted to move down, right? It looked like the market was moving down, basically long term. But look at this. This is a market that had a huge uptick, lot of dollar strength, and price bounced off this area, which it had done previously, right? And price now has tried to form a bottom in what seems to be the 107 region. We've got one, we've got two. 2 times price has basically tried to bounce off this particular area. But the problem with the USD/JPY is for the last couple of weeks, although if we want to exclude this or just take into consideration, okay, all of this activity, price hasn't had a lot of velocity in it. We haven't seen this like kind of action. We haven't seen this kind of action, or even this kind of action. There was a lot of up and down, hundreds of pips were basically exchanging hands, basically. And then all of a sudden, it's just a lot of the volatility has basically been pushed out of the market. And a really great tool you can use, a free tool as well. We did a video about this recently. It's called the average true range. If you go back on our channel a couple of videos ago, you can watch it. It's a powerful video which will show you how that tool can help you kind of spot all of this stuff in real time. It's not a perfect science. It's not like I said, it's not ultimately the optimal word is perfect. It's not perfect, but it can help you ascertain and see these kind of things as they're happening as time's progressing. So it will give you just a different mindset, a different view of what the price is actually doing in real time in regards to how much the market is actually. Now, the fact of the matter is, again, you can watch that video after this live stream. It will definitely be of benefit to you. Let's see. The thing is, we talked about the 107 region, right? We've got 1, we've got 2, but look how price ended. And remember, the weekly candle was overall down because the market, if you just count the candles, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so the market opened here in this region and overall went from here and ultimately ended here. So it's overall a downwards momentum. Okay, this much activity. But apart from early in the week, most of the week was trying to push back opposed to Friday, okay, the last day of the week. So when we look at all of this stuff, we have to have a question mark. What is price going to do at 1.7 if price basically tries to get back there? We're talking about we're 55 pips away from this. So this could be there this evening. This could be there tomorrow morning. And it's about basically seeing what happens. If price is going to break this area, then it's looking likely that price isn't going to be able to try and retest this area, which I thought initially it would do as price was dropping here. I thought initially, you know what, price is basically going to stop somewhere and try and retest the area. Maybe it's not, but again, this goes back to historical areas. Price dropped all the way down in March, came all the way back basically in March, or in February it dropped, to be honest, came all the way back in March and subsequently has dropped halfway through the end of March, and in April it's looking like it wants to continue to move down. And if it is going to do that, then we'll be ready and waiting to basically continue that movement down. If it's going to go the other way, we'll basically switch it up. So we've been going for pretty much about an hour. Normally on the weekend we'll probably do these a bit longer, but if there's no questions in the comment section that I can see additionally, so pretty much on that note, I'll probably wrap up today's live stream right here. Hopefully this has been of benefit to you. If you like what we've talked about, make sure you hit the thumbs up button, subscribe to the channel, and obviously as always, okay, we'll look out for our next live stream or video this week, which is most likely going to be in 2 days, and will hopefully help you and unpack more of what the market's actually doing in that time as well. Thanks and take care. I'll see you on the next video.